Evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the South Fulton Coalition Citizens Conversation Series. Tonight, we are joined with District 2 candidate Aaron Johnson. He will be assisted by Yashina Colbert Bradford. She will be your moderator for this evening. Now, Ms. Colbert Bradford, she is a resident of District 1 in the city of South Fulton. And so I just wanted to go over a few ground rules. So we ask that the audience and the candidate both be respectful to one another. This is an opportunity for the candidate to talk about his vision for District 2 as well as the city of South Fulton, as well as the audience to get to know the candidate and the candidate to be able to share a little bit more about his vision and platform. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to our moderator for the evening, Yoshina Colbert Bradford. You have the floor.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mr. Snelling. Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Snelling's mentioned, I'm Yoshina Colbert Bradford. I will be moderating this evening. Good evening, Mr. Johnson. How are you this evening?
I am phenomenal. How about yourself?
I am doing great. And I'm just going to go ahead and kick off. I'm going to let you start by introducing yourself. And I'm going to first apologize. We do have some construction going on. It was supposed to be finished last week and it's still going. So we're getting a bathroom remodel. However, I would like for you to go ahead and take 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what do we look forward to seeing you as a candidate?
All right. Well, thank you, first of all, so much for having me tonight. I truly appreciate the opportunity to talk to the various folks in the city of South Fulton about who I am and what I would like to do as the next city council person for District 2. As you mentioned, my name is Aaron Johnson. I am obviously a District 2 resident. I have been living in District 2 before it was District 2. I've lived in this house for the last 20 years, 19 to be exact, but we're going to round it up just a notch. I've been here for 19 years, and also during that time period, it's a place that my wife and I chose because we wanted a place to raise our family that we felt like represented who we were and put our kids in a place where they got to see people like them, where they can go in the grocery store and see their teachers. They can go down the street to the park and maybe run into their pastor. We made sure that when we moved to South Fulton, it was very intentional, and we center our lives right here in South Fulton. My wife is an administrator at Westlake High School. We have one son that is already graduated and on to college, but still in my pockets. Um, we have a ninth grader there right now, and we're looking forward to continuing to help South Fulton thrive. I'm also a 30-year government. I've worked in and around government for 30 years now. I've the only candidate that's running that has worked on every level of government. I am currently the Atlanta City Council President's Chief of Staff. On the county level, I went up from constituent services into the chief of staff for the county chair, as well as spending time in the county manager's office. On the state level, I've worked in a legislative session, as well as for former Governor Roy Barnes. And then on the federal level, I was the first district director for Congresswoman Nikema Williams. Did something happen or? Okay, I'll keep going.
Keep going. You'll
Uh,
continue to hear the beeps. That's because we're letting
Beeps, if folks
individuals.
can. Okay, I'm sorry. I
So you have
apologize.
about
So,
15 seconds to go ahead.
we have also been very involved in our community where I was on the elections board for 8 years in Fulton County. I served on the Board of Zoning Appeals for 7 years and the PTSA for Westlake and All Pro DAS for Stonewall Tail Elementary. So we're very rooted in the community, and I look forward to the conversation tonight.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. And we're so
Mhm.
excited to have this platform. I just want to thank Mr. Snellings and Mr. Booth for having this platform for us. It allows the candidates to just really have their own time to shine. And I think that's a great thing. You're all going through the times of making sure that you have forums, you have so many debates that happen, but this is the time for you to shine. So I'm happy that you had your 2 minutes there. We'll go ahead and get into the questions. And
Okay.
from there, we'll always take questions from the citizens as well. And once we
Okay.
get started, I always ask that We remain respectful and we ask the citizens to remain respectful. They can ask questions because they are citizens. However, let's love on each other just a little bit more tonight. All right. Well, we'll get into it. You kind of already got into the first question. What kind of really motivated you to run for City Council District 2? What is your main motivation?
My main motivation is for making sure the city continues to thrive and for our city to be in a light beyond where we are. I think there are a lot of negative aspects of the city that are continuously being shown, but I believe that working together as a council, our city can be so much more. I truly believe in the promise of the city of South Fulton, and I believe that if we work together and we do the right things, then our city will elevate to a level that we really believe was going to happen when the city became a city.
All right. And what things do you feel that City of South Fulton have already done well, and what things do they need to improve on?
I look at things like our new public safety facility coming up. I look at, and remember, I was the chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals for 7 years. That gave me the opportunity to see some of what the city wanted to do when it came to planning and putting together a plan for the future of the city. Now, to me, that's a good and a bad thing because by seeing that, I know that we can do so much more, specifically in the planning department. And I've seen that we need to do something, we need to do a little more in retaining our workers. We had during our early stages, probably about our first 6 years, and even up to today, it seemed like we had a lot of turnover when it came into the city. However, I think even with the growing pains that we've had, uh, we've done some good things, especially when it comes to uh, our new developments in the city. But we just got to get a better focus on removing some of the negative aspects. We're in the news a little bit too much for things that are unrelated to being a great city. And if we can do that, I think we'll be so much better off.
Absolutely. Piggybacking off of what you just mentioned, just getting the negativity about it. So we have somewhat disengaged a lot of residents who used to be engaged. How do you
Mhm.
plan as a city council person to engage more of the residents moving
Well,
forward?
Well, during my time as the on the board of elections for this for Fulton County, my major responsibility was South Fulton. And what I always want, when I say South Fulton, I mean South Fulton as a region, as a whole. And one of the things that I did was make sure that our citizens were educated on what we were doing.
Mhm.
A lot of people, especially if you can imagine, when I first got on the elections board, it was the uh, Brian Kemp versus Stacey Abrams. After that election, and Brian Kemp, was the Secretary of State, a lot of people felt like he stole the election. So we had to go in and regain trust with, at that time, Democrats. We had to show through education, through bringing people to our elections office, that we were doing the right things as it relates to protecting a citizen's right to vote. But then we got into 2020, and then you had the Trump election. Well, when you had the Trump election, it started all over again. It was just on the other side. So what we began to do things like we created a kind of like a citizens university for the elections department. We created a mobile voter education. We created a voter education office within the within our elections division. And that office was dedicated to going around and letting people touch the machines, letting people see how elections actually worked. And then over time, we began to get people began to get a better feel and gain more trust in us. And I think that's what we're going to have to do with the city of South Fulton. We, as city council members, if I'm so blessed to be elected as your city council person, along with the other council members and whomever the mayor is, we're going to have to go and show that we are working together to do the right thing for the people of South Fulton and do everything we can to gain their trust back.
Absolutely. Well, that leads right into my next question, transparency.
Uh-huh.
How do you see your first 100 days in office, and what do you feel would be the best thing to do? So, two-part question. What are your
hmm
first 100 days in office as a city council? And then the next part is, how can you ensure transparency and accountability starting off new within that 100 days? What would be your strategy?
Okay. Well, can I flip those and answer the transparency question first? And I say that because if anyone knows me and has worked with me on the elections board as well as the Board of Zoning Appeals, we are consistently transparent. One of the things that I've always wanted to do, I've maintained accessibility. People were always, my wife will tell you, people call me from daybreak to dark 30. And it's because they have questions and they may not have them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'll talk to them. I make sure and I sit there and I try to make sure people understand exactly what's going on. And I try my best to show them physically. And that's why we put the machines on a RV and rolled them around the county because we wanted people to be able to see, feel, and touch what elections were like. And we can do the same thing with the city. We can do consistent town halls. We can bring people in, work with people in a different way, and try to get people to understand that it's not necessarily an adversarial relationship between the citizens and the city, but a relationship that is designed so that we can all work together to do better. Now, as it relates to my first 100 days, luckily I have I think a pretty good plan for that. The very first thing that I would do, to be honest with you, I'm going to talk to all the candidates that ran for this position, because I know those are the ones that stepped up and said, I'm willing to work. And I'm going to put them to the test to see if they are truly willing to work, to see how we can work together, because I think we can get great ideas from everyone. My next step is setting up time to talk to each and every one of the city council members, whether it's new council members and a new mayor, but whomever is elected after December 31st. Those are the people that I'm going to sit down and talk to. I'm going to find common ground with them. I'm going to understand where they are and where they want to go and what's their vision for the city of South Fulton. And then I want to know, how can we marry our ideas and the will of the people together so that we can move this city forward. Next, I'm going to sit down with the county manager. I want to have an opportunity to have a full day with the city manager. I'm thinking about my old job. Sit down with the city manager, get an opportunity to talk to her about what has she found to be the pitfalls? What has she found to be the pluses and minuses of being in the city? After I do that, I now want to sit down have a working discussion with the city manager and the department heads. Because I do understand that the department heads are the people that are closest to the ground. They have a greater understanding of what the issues that they have faced. What issues have the employees faced? Why do we have so much turnover? What's going on in the city that's causing so much turnover? And then I'm coming back to the citizens. I'm coming back to the citizens because, we spent this entire election talking to citizens, but you want to engage the citizens in a different way. It's one thing to go out and ask them for their vote, but then it's another thing to sit down, talk to citizens about what they want to see. You get it a little bit when they're voting, but I promise you, when you're in the seat, they talk to you a totally different way, and they divulge information in a totally different way. So I think that'll take up about 99 days. I'll take a nap on that 100th day, and then we'll start all over again.
Well, that's good. Right after your now, I guess the next, and then we get right back into the next question.
Exactly.
So I would say, um, my next question to you, just listen to what you were just stating on your answer there, kind of piggybacking just a little bit more about transparency. Do you
Mhm.
feel coming into that seat with new council, new members, would you be willing to or want to do an audit or forensic audit on the city
I'm
of South Fulton?
I'm fine with doing the audit. One of the things that I have forensic audit of the city. One of the things that I wanted to talk to the city manager about is what has been audited. And I granted the city manager may have an angle for it, but we need to make sure because there's been some question what's been audited, what hasn't been audited. Only the mayor's P card has been audited. Everybody's P card has been audited. I want to get an understanding of what actually happened. I want to see what actually happened. I have a report that I received that says a lot of things that have been told has happened has not happened. So we need to make sure that our finances in order, which leads me also to one of the bigger things that I want to do. And the reason why I want to get a bond rating for the city of South Fulton. That would be one of my major objectives for a term is to lay the foundation for a bond rating for the city because I know how important it is in order to do business, but not just because it shows that we have a great credit rating. It shows that we are running the city properly. What a lot of people don't understand about a bond rating, it's more than just your credit rating. It's how you function as a city. And in order to get a AAA bond rating, you have to function very well as a city. And that's what I want our goal to be.
Absolutely. And we do have a hand raised from one of the citizens. Mr.
Mhm.
Snelling, you're on.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, you mentioned about getting the bond rating, and recently we saw that there was a lot of discontent over the millage rate cap. So,
Mhm.
if this comes back up when you're on council, how will you vote on making changes to the millage rate cap, seeing how the citizens feel about it?
Well, that was the thing about the millage rate cap. One of the things that I've learned is that you talk to a broad range of people, and the people that showed up were absolutely against it. I think a part of it is also making sure people truly understand what that means. A lot of people felt like if you moved the millage rate cap, that automatically raised your millage rate or raised your taxes. And once, if you talk to people and they realize, so wait, you can move the cap without our taxes going up? And the answer, quite frankly, is yes. And in that manner, people were a little more comfortable with it. However, you're right. People are afraid of the cap being moved. And that's why I believe that we have to gain trust. The city has to gain trust with the people in a way that we never had before. Um, Right now, luckily, they didn't have to vote whether to move the cap or not because the financing worked out. But if we had a bond rating, more than likely that wouldn't even be a question.
All right, and then the second part to my question
Mhm.
is let's say so you had mentioned about the people believing that if you raise the millage rate cap, it has to raise the actual millage rate. But what about those people that see the millage rate cap as a protection from the state, and the city is removing a protection that the state gave us? What do you say to those residents that say, I am not in favor of this. I don't trust the city to touch the millage rate. What do you say to those residents?
Well, I say what I just said a second ago is that we have to gain trust in the people. Once people trust you and they understand what the actual situation, what the full situation is, they're more likely to say, okay, they may have a different viewpoint. Now, if we get to a point where they trust you and they understand that that the millage rate cap even if you move it, it doesn't raise the millage rate and they still say no, then we'll have to go with the will of the people. And we'll have to go with the will of all the people that's in the district. I would have to vote what District 2 is. I would do my best as a city council person to explain to people what the process is and what the situation is. And once we do that, if they still say, no, I don't think this is a good idea, then we go with what the people want.
Thank you so much for that. And I just wanted to make an announcement to the audience. If you would like to ask our candidate, Aaron Johnson, any question, please feel free to use the reaction button and raise your hand. We have a question from Patricia. Patricia, please unmute your mic. You have the floor. Thank you so much. Patricia, please unmute your mic.
There it
Hi,
is.
can you hear me?
I hear
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Hi, thank you. Hey, it was a great show the other night at the Eden Church. I was out there and I was really impressed with you and all the other candidates. Couple questions,
Hmm.
couple pet peeves of mine. One is the mill cap. I lost connection, so I'm not sure exactly what you said. But
Hmm.
so are you saying that if they were going to try to raise the mill cap, I mean either raise the mill rate or remove the cap, are you saying that won't have anything to do with our taxes on an annual basis?
No. So the cap tells you, so this is basically what it is. The cap says that you can only go this high, right? Right now we're under that cap. Some will argue that we're comfortably under the cap or we're just under the cap. I say we're whatever it is, we're under the cap. Technically, and Mr. Snellings is on here to check me to make sure I say it right. The taxes can be raised tomorrow. They can actually go ahead and raise the taxes up to the cap right now. So even which the bigger question was, should they remove the cap or raise the cap? That didn't necessarily that did open the door, but it didn't make them raise the millage rate. The problem is people don't trust that they're not going to raise the millage rate or raise your taxes. People don't trust that if you gave them an inch, that they would take a mile. And until the citizens of South Fulton gain a greater level of trust in our government as a whole, then that was the biggest issue. In my opinion, that was the biggest issue during that argument.
Okay, so you're
Thank
saying
you for
again, I'm
that.
going to be clear,
Go ahead, Miss
that
Patricia.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You can
Go
finish.
ahead.
Okay, so you're saying that raising the mill cap or removing it has nothing to do with our annual taxes. Yes or no?
I would say, well, when you say nothing to
Eventually.
do, no, not even eventually. Just because you raise the cap or remove the cap doesn't necessarily mean that the millage rate will go up.
Well, when you say necessarily mean, see that's the
Okay, all right.
gray
Well, let me
area.
let me let me
Well,
say it in a different way. They can raise your taxes right now.
Yeah, I know
Like
that. Yeah, I know that.
so,
Yeah.
but they didn't move the millage rate. They didn't move the cap, nor did they didn't raise the cap or remove the cap. And they still had to vote on whether or not to raise your taxes. So they could have raised the taxes without moving the millage, without changing the cap. And do you understand what I'm saying? Now,
Yeah, I
granted,
understand
if
what you're
they
saying, but you're
remove the
not being very
cap,
clear. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But you're not being very clear, transparent.
Okay. I think I'm trying very hard to be clear and transparent. You
So
can raise your millage rate right now without moving the cap or without changing the cap.
okay.
If they had removed the cap or if they had changed the cap, yes, they could have raised the taxes,
Okay,
but they didn't
that's exactly what I
necessarily,
wanted you to say. That's
but they
exactly
didn't
what
have,
I wanted you to say.
but
Thank you.
okay.
Yeah.
Mr.
All right,
Johnson,
thank
can
you for
you?
that. So, Mr. Johnson, we have another
Mhm.
question coming from Mrs. Leverett. But before she asks her question, let me just get clarification on the last thing that you just mentioned.
Mhm.
So in answering about the cap and
Mhm.
the millage rate, so we're under the cap that we already have
Mhm.
as far as taxes, but
Yes.
we had a conversation about removing the cap and
Either removing the cap or raising the
or
cap.
raising the cap. Okay.
Mhm.
And then even though we're under the cap that we have now,
Mhm.
Where do we stand as city of South Fulton with the millage rate? Do we have the highest millage rate or are we under other cities?
No, the city of Atlanta has the highest millage rate. If you're talking about in Fulton County,
In Fulton.
yeah, the city of Atlanta.
Okay. Ms. Leverett, you can go ahead. You have the floor.
Oh,
Thank
she's
you so
unmuted now.
much. And I may have been remiss in asking this question because I joined in late, but my question is addressing an issue with the trust of the council and
Mhm.
handling of dealing with each other. Some council people are very contentious,
Mhm.
and I would ask, how would you handle that, number one? And number two, sometimes they don't seem to respect the mayor and the etiquette of the meeting. How do you believe that should be handled?
So thank you for that question. The very first thing is how I've handled it before. Serving on representing the citizens of South Fulton on the elections board and representing the citizens of the city of South Fulton on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Both boards have 7 people. I'm sorry, the zoning board has 7 people and the elections board has 5 people. The elections board is made up of Democrats and Republicans. And it has a tendency to be a little contentious. It has a tendency, especially around the 2020 election when our current president was not happy about the election results that happened. And so our meetings got a little heated. But I think our meetings were respectful to each other in a way that with the citizens, with the current board. I think what we have to do is, like I mentioned in my first 100 days, is establishing that relationship with that working relationship with the current board. Understanding that we're not all going to agree on everything, understanding that sometimes there are things that we just absolutely vehemently disagree on. But we have to be respectful to each other. And that starts by me being respectful to them at all times. That starts by me showing and being a true leader on that council to a point where when people start to see what you do and they recognize what other people doing, it brings heat on them to fall in line and at least begin to be cordial during the meetings. Now, behind closed doors, an executive session, other places, if we argue, it's fine. But what we want to do is make sure that as long as that camera is on and those mics are hot, that we work with each other. And I think you do that by doing things like having dinner with each other, just talking to each other on the phone. When you go out to different events, sit beside each other, talk about things other than just work, talk about your family, talk about children. And then when you get into work, you've developed that rapport with each other that makes it a lot easier to work together.
Uh, Great answer. I'm gonna see if Ms. Leverett can unmute. Okay, I think she had another question.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
into your question when you said go to dinner, I do have a question to follow up. I'll let Ms. Leverett answer her question first.
No, go ahead because mine is a different question. So
Okay,
if you're on this track, stay there.
so with the one about dinner, if you all went out for dinner, would you be using your P card or would you pay for it out of your pocket?
I've always paid out of my pocket.
Okay, and how do you feel
Yes.
about council? I would say more so abusing the P card versus um and really being held accountable for their usage of the P card. What are your thoughts?
So I can tell you this, in my office right now, we have access to, we have the ability. I work in like, as I mentioned, I'm the chief of staff for the Atlanta City Council president. In that, we go on trips, we do different things, and we have a very good system of payment. For instance, if I were to go on a trip, I pay for, well, we just put in where we're going. They pay for the flight. They pay for the hotel. Of course, if it's an approved travel, let's lay that on the table first. Has to be approved travel. While I'm there, all of my expenses are out of pocket and they're reimbursed. And if you don't have the proper receipts and you don't have the proper paperwork and it's not relevant, then it will not be reimbursed. That keeps you from overspending, so to speak. It keeps you from going out and being frivolous with money because it's yours that's being spent first, and then you get reimbursed for it. So, but in that manner, I think that again, when we talk about the audit, we can make sure that we have rules in place. And I think that GMA, or I'm sorry, the Georgia Municipal Association and other government related associations that help cities and help counties understand what they should and should not be doing, and also create guidelines for them to be able to go out and do different things, but make sure they're doing it in the right way.
Thank you for that. Ms. Lever, you can go
Yes,
ahead with your question.
Okay.
thank you. I do agree with that statement about having a central person doing the travel. And several jobs that I've had, they did that, and they had a person dedicated to the P card focus. So I do agree with that answer. My next question is, several council people contact the media directly for news stories, which are often not in the best light for the city. Do you believe that the city council should be directly contacting the news media, even though we have a public relations department? That's part one. And part two is, some in the council feel like, as individuals, it's their constitutional right to contact the media. How do you want to handle that?
Well, I think it is. There are certain things, as much as we would not like for them to do it, then, but they do have the ability to do it. I think it's unfortunate. I hate every time something is about to happen at City Hall that's going to be contentious, that there are already news media there before staff can even get to work. So I agree with you there. I can't say that, especially in this environment right now, that they don't have the ability to reach out to the media. But as much as I don't think is right, and I don't think they should, I don't think we can take that right away from them. Now, as far as me, what I'm going to be focused on are the students that are doing well in our high schools. I'm going to be focused on the great activities that our seniors are doing in our neighborhoods. I'm going to be focused on the great things that are happening in the city of South Fulton, as opposed to something that I think is salacious and will get me airtime on television.
All right, thank you for that answer. Ms. Harvey,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Getting to the transparency and money issue, which to me is very important because I believe in managing money. Do you think candidates should release their financials?
We do. We do a personal financial statement. Ours was just done. It had to be done 15 days after qualifying. No, was it 15 days? Yeah, 15 days after qualifying.
Okay, because I'm gonna tell you something. I don't think the city of South Fulton was doing that, especially with the candidates um, from the first election, because some private citizens did an investigation on a couple of people, and they had some severe financial issues.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they put it on my Facebook page. And I thought that, when you qualify, you got to release financial information. But I do know East Point, they had a couple of candidates over there that was engaging in fraud, and they did press this candidate to release his financials. So I want to know how serious. I mean, when they do they really press people to release their financials when they qualify?
So 15 days after qualifying, you're required to do what's called a personal financial disclosure.
Okay.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm listening.
So you are required to do that. If you do not do that, there's a charge that can be brought against you. You can be fined. You won't go to jail or anything like that for not filing that document. However, the whole purpose of that document is to make sure that number one, show that you are not in possession of anything financial that will be a conflict, or you're not, if you own a business that may be in conflict with doing the job or something like that. But it is a requirement that you file that personal financial disclosure report 15 days after you qualify,
What if
which,
the
for the record, I did do mine.
okay? What if the individual owes the IRS, which is a
If they
federal
owe the
government agency?
IRS,
All right, if they owe the IRS a lot of money.
well, depend if you have a payment plan or something like that, that doesn't preclude you from being an
Oh,
elected official.
but to me, that means that they're running because they need to get their hands on some money real quick. And we all know that running for office, if you have money problems,
Hmm.
is the only game in town to get your hands on a lot of money. I mean, let's face it, that's been the history of a lot of situations. So that's the reason why I ask those questions,
Hmm.
because I want to see who has motivation to run for office where they can get their hands on a lot of money at one time, especially if they got internal revenue on their backs, and the state on their backs, not to mention other situations. Don't let me have to name names.
Don't
So,
name
Yes,
names.
ma'am.
Thank you so much, Ms. Harvey.
okay,
Thank
that's
you for your
okay. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for your question.
All
All right, we
right.
have another hand up. Mr. Snelling.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to that question that Miss Harvey just asked. So, Miss Harvey, were you referring to when you were asking for financials to be released, were you referring to the candidate filling out a form disclosing it, or were you asking for actual credit reports and bank statements and tax returns to be provided to the city for validation? I just want to get.
Exactly. Exactly. Especially with the internal revenue and state revenue and school loans.
All right, so
Mm.
you're not asking about them filling out a disclosure statement on the honor system. You want to you want them to actually turn in the physical document to the
Exactly.
city.
I don't believe in that honor system crap. That doesn't work.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. That was what my question was.
Yes, actual
All
documents.
right. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you both. Did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Johnson?
Uh, no.
All right, thank you. The next question that we have, I'm going to ask, often the zoning ordinances is in conflict with the residents' wishes. How do
Mhm.
you think, as council, um, would you resolve this?
Well, the first thing we have to do as residents is be a part of the comprehensive plan. When the comprehensive plan is being developed, that's the map. Now, granted, a lot of the zoning that we received in the city of South Fulton came from Fulton County. So in Fulton County, when we became a city, they essentially just scratched out Fulton County and wrote City of South Fulton on it. Then there has been some changes. However, when the city of South Fulton is trying to create a 25-year, 30-year, 50-year plan, citizens have to be engaged in that. And that's one of the things that I would do is to try to get people to come out and be a part of that. So the city understands what people really want and what people desire zoning to be. Now, granted, it's going to have to go back and forth between legal, but at the same time, if we get people involved, and I think we can be honest on this call, is that sometimes you have these meetings and you get four or five people to show up, But then when something happens, you get 50 people to show up to be upset about it. We need you there at the very beginning. We need you there when the plan is being developed. And then that way, pay attention to your planning commission meetings. Pay attention to your zoning meetings. Pay attention to your board of zoning appeals meetings, because that's where your zoning changes happen. And you have to make sure you're focused on that.
Thank you so much. And I can
Mhm.
say from an individual who is a concerned citizen, I used to be very engaged. It is disappointing when you feel you have to go to all of the different meetings and you also have, soccer practice, basketball practice. You have so much
Mhm.
as a parent and you do have kids. So
Can I
I
say
feel,
something to that, though?
hold 1 second. Yep, you
Okay.
can. So
All
I
right.
will say that I think my disconnect from the city is that we don't have any visionaries. And I say that in a sense, you shouldn't, if you've lived in a district for a very long time and you're very engaged, as many should be, there are some things and some decisions that have been made by the city
Mhm.
that to me is a no-brainer. Why would we even make that decision? Why are we still having developers still develop and not even pay an incentive into the community and where they are or be taxed how they should be accordingly? Um, so those are some of the things where I feel myself as a citizen, I become disengaged because no matter what I say or we go to these meetings, some things are still getting done or getting passed. But you
Mhm.
go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt. And then after you speak briefly, I will go to Mrs. Leverett, Mr. Snellings in that order.
So one of the things you mentioned a second ago is you got soccer practice, you got this, you got that. I completely understand. I had a son who joined everything under the sun. And I have another son who does travel basketball. And if anybody does AAU basketball, today you might be in New Orleans, tomorrow you might be in South Carolina, and next week you're going to be in Tennessee. So what you do is you have an organization. The way you do it is you attack it by having a group. Don't put it all on one person. Have an organization like, for instance, Sandtown or Cliftondale. For District 2, we're primarily Cliftondale. So if you join Cliftondale, and then you divide everything up amongst the people within the organization. That's how you're able to attack it. You won't be able to do it by yourself. Almost nobody with a family, with a job, with a career, you're not going to be able to go to all the meetings. You're not going to be able to keep up with everything because it is a lot. We've seen, in my opinion, I think some of the staff at the city or even at the city of Atlanta, other cities, don't keep up with everything. A lot of things fall through the crack. But if you have a zoning committee or if you have a parks committee within Cliftondale, you get enough people to join it, then you're able to follow these things and keep up with these things in a way that you wouldn't be able to do alone. Like the city of Atlanta has NPUs. NPUs, now I promise you, they keep up with everything because everything comes through them. So I think that's something that we can push towards as a city in order to keep people involved in what's going on, involved and engaged.
Thank you for that. And I think NPUs would be a great way to get citizens engaged. That would be something we should have here in City of South.
Hmm.
Ms. Leverett? Okay.
Yes, you said that they scratched off Fulton and put South Fulton. Um, Once upon a time, Renaissance was up for grabs, and I feel like they just put South Fulton because they didn't have a name for the city. And I thought they were supposed to go back and rename the city. Are you in favor of renaming the city? And if so, do you have an idea of a name that you would recommend?
I want to clarify something. When I said they scratched off Fulton and put South Fulton, I didn't mean as far as the name. I just they when they turned over when the Fulton County turned over the zoning records for the city of South Fulton, we kept their zoning rules. We kept most of their zoning rules. Now there have been
Oh, I
some
most definitely
changes.
believe you on that. And I wasn't,
Okay, so
that's what triggered me to think about.
the
We
name.
started out with Renaissance and we didn't pick a name and we became South Fulton in Fulton County. So would you recommend a different name Or do you think we
Eh,
should stay City of South Fulton in Fulton County?
I will be honest with you. Initially, I wanted the name changed. I wanted a name that was reflective of our community and not the entire region all the time. Because, when they're on the news and whenever the news comes up and they say, reporting from South Fulton and they're in Hateville, or they're reporting from South Fulton and they're in College Park. I just think in 8 years in with the name City of South Fulton, it's going to be very tough to change the name. I'm not saying that's not something we can look at, but I do believe that at this point, it would be extremely difficult to change the name.
All right, thank you for that answer. Mr. Snellings, and then we have a few questions in the chat, and I'll read those out once
Yeah, I was actually going to cover those questions in the chat. All right,
Okay.
so the first question is, what are your thoughts about the council and mayor being required to be a property owner in the community in order to run for and hold elected office?
So I think that is unfair and unfortunate. I will be very honest about that. I've actually had people in other cities that have tried the same thing to say that unless you are an actual property owner, you shouldn't be able to run for office. I think that what that does is that says that if you're not a property owner, you don't count. If you're not a property owner, if you're a voter and you live in a community and you're an active member of that community and the people in that community chooses you to be an elected official in that community, that should be all that counts.
All right,
thank
thank
you
you.
for that.
All
Mhm.
right. And then the second question is, how do you plan to marry your responsibilities within your district and as a representative for the entire city as well to be fair to both sides? And I think this question is derived from the city. People feel as though there are 7 districts and you have 7 different mayors, and we always hear about
Mhm.
my district, but we don't always hear about the city as a whole. How would
Mhm.
you avoid that if you were elected?
Well, I think there are going to be times where you have my district, but the way I do it is exactly how I did it on the elections board. On the elections board, I represented South Fulton I was the only member that represented South Fulton, but every vote that I made represented the entire county. Every decision that I made always represented the entire county. And it's very easy to do when you focus on the betterment of the city through the district, or you represent the county, in my case, the county through South Fulton. When I left the Board of Registration and Elections, I was the only member, it's 5 members. I was the only member that was on that board from Atlanta South. So whenever there were times that people from any of the southern cities in South Fulton and the city of Atlanta had issues, there was a 95% probability that they would reach out to me. And the way that I always handled being able to get the things I needed for them is understanding that on the north side of town, they needed things too. And we always worked together for the betterment of the entire county. That's what I would do in the city of South Fulton. I understand that in District 7, their wants, needs, and desires are totally different. Well, not totally different, but are greatly different than those of us right here in District 2. And I understand as close as District 4 is a little different than it is in District 2. So whenever there are issues that are coming up for them, I have to have an open ear and be ready to work with them in order to advance their needs while I'm working to get their support to advance ours as well.
All right, thank you for that. We have a few more questions from the chat. One was, what are your thoughts on warehouses and data centers in city of South Fulton? And I know we don't have them. Some are not actually in city of South Fulton,
Right.
but they're right on the borderline.
Right across the street. I live on Stonewall Tail Road, and literally down the street, across the street from Stonewall Manor, there is a warehouse. I think they all have their place. What we need to do is find an area, ideally on the outskirts, but find an area that they can concentrate in. I agree that they should not be in neighborhoods. They should not be centered around schools. They should not be centered around areas that we could potentially develop for shopping or walking or having things that we need in our community. But I do think they have a place. They just need to be somewhere that is conducive for them to do it. I know the city of Union City has quite a few along South Fulton Parkway, and it butts up against our neighborhoods, which is unfortunate because I wish that we could have worked with Union City to say, let's try to put them in a concentrated area so that as citizens are coming through, they're not having to wake up and look or come home at night and see a big warehouse sitting up on a hill over their subdivision, or you have a few trees, but when they turn the lights on, you can still see through them. So it's just they're fine in certain places. It's just not in our neighborhoods.
And what are your thoughts as a citizen, that the cities could not work together? Because I'm pretty sure there are some elected officials who know Mayor Vince pretty well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So just like you mentioned before, having those dinners, how could we not have those conversations? And for a minute, you're not a candidate, you're a citizen. How do you feel about that?
Well, it'll be different as an elected official because you're going in with a different, you have a different demeanor walking through the door. But as a citizen, you try to appeal to the citizens of the city of Union City. I don't know how they develop. I have an idea, but what I do know is that the only way that you're going to work is to show them that, for instance, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but in North Fulton, right now, they are currently looking at creating their own development authority. As you know, we have the Fulton County Development Authority. They're looking at making a North Fulton Development Authority to separate from South Fulton. Why? Because the mayors and council up there work cohesively together. You very rarely see them butting heads over different things. Now, I have seen Sandy Springs and Dunwoody, which are in two different counties, butt heads over something, but for the most part, Alpharetta, Johns Creek, Milton, Sandy Springs, Roswell, and to a degree, Mountain Park, they run lockstep with each other because they understand that when you develop up there, it's benefiting everybody. Think about it. Roswell is a historic district. Homes in Roswell, they're spread apart. Milton has horse pastures, but Alpharetta has a lot of commercial. Alpharetta has a lot of restaurants, they have things of that nature, and so does Sandy Springs. And you just go right down the street around the corner for either of them. You can go live in Milton and live on a horse farm, but you can just take a 10, 15 minute drive over to Alpharetta and have all the commercial residents, Avalon, all the things that you want, and then go back home and live in a quiet neighborhood. In South Fulton, we have to understand and try to get our elected officials to realize that when developers come in and tell us, oh, we're going to do this for you, that you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for the entire region.
All right. Thank you, Miss Harvey.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just expand on that because I gave
Mhm.
a an example of where they want to put up a a data center over there on Mason Road, which Union City butts up uh to us on that street.
Mhm.
Um, they wanted to put that the proposal was to put a data center there. Now, let me just say this: all that land over there is privately owned. The houses that sit on that street are rentals. The people that own the land rent to those people, so all those homes would be destroyed eventually if they put a data center over there. If the city of South Fulton was not going to allow that, then the owner threatened to have his land over there re-annexed to Union City,
Hmm.
so they can build it.
Hmm.
So people need to look at who actually owns all of this land that they want to put data centers on. Prime example, Fayetteville. They placed a huge data center over there, and I understand from a person who was on one of these calls, they said all the land was owned by the Truitt family that they put the data centers on. So your people need to look at that about who owns the land. I can say this, you're not going to see that over there in Chattahoochee Hills because Chattahoochee Hills owns 70% of the land out there, of the property that's out there. 30% is through private ownership. But the city of Chat Hills owns the majority of the land out there, that green space.
And we thank you so much for that. Thank you
Okay,
for
thank
that question, and thank you
Hmm.
for the comments. And I'll let you answer in just a moment, Mr. Johnson, to speak to that. We have 5 minutes left, really 4 minutes left in the session.
Okay.
We end at 8. Um, we don't have any additional questions. I did put in the last request for any questions in the chat. And if not, if you don't mind, I would say we will do a hard stop at 8. And if you would like to continue with some of the residents, you're more than welcome, and residents are more than welcome to stay on. Did you have any thoughts towards Ms. Harvey at this time?
I don't disagree with her in the sense that we have to do something. I know there are other cities that put moratoriums on they put moratoriums on data centers. However, the data center property owner doesn't have the luxury of being able to annex into another area. So it's a little easier when they're landlocked to say you can't put a data center within our city. But they have a tendency to play with us a little more around the edges of the city of South Fulton. That's why we need to work harder to get the other cities to understand that, look, we don't want to become a data center driven area or region. We want a region that we can begin to grow and thrive.
Thank you for that. Mr. Snelling?
Yeah, so over the last couple council meetings, the item has been on the agenda about changing the restrictions for public comments.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on removing the restrictions on public comments where the item has to be on the agenda in order for residents to talk about it? I know in the last couple meetings, residents have tried to talk about things that were not on the agenda and they were shot down. So how do you feel about that? Should that restriction be lifted or does it need to remain in place?
I think it only needs to remain in place as it relates to zoning. Outside of zoning, I don't have a problem with citizens talking about anything that they want to talk about. You got to remember, I was a part of a public comment at the city of Atlanta that lasted for 15 hours. So I sat through public comment for a very long time. Not that I want to do it again, by the way, just for the record, but what we need to be able to do is allow citizens to speak, but we need to give citizens greater opportunity to speak. That's why you have more, you try to develop more town hall meetings. One of the things that I pledge is to have one, at least one every 3 months. I want to make sure that when you have something, it's of substance and you're not just having it to have it. You're not just having it to check it off a box and put it on Instagram that you had one. I want it to be a substantive the conversation that people can come in and talk about what they really want. I would also go around to various subdivisions and talk to people, subdivisions and neighborhoods, and talk to the citizens and talk to the residents about things that they're thinking about. Now, will you have people that will still come to public comment and, air it out? Absolutely. And that's totally fine.
All right, thank you so much. We're at our stopping point as of 8 o'clock. We will go ahead. Looks like we have 2 more questions that came in the chat. Is it okay to go ahead, Rashad? Is it okay to go ahead and extend to to do the two questions? And Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
are you okay with that?
Yeah, so when we set this up, we asked the candidate to be on for an additional half hour just in case, so we have plenty of time.
All right, thank you.
Oh,
All right, the next question comes from Mrs. Phyllis Reed. Has candidate received any campaign funds from developers or from law firms or lawyers representing the developers? Have you received any of these funds, Mr. Johnson?
I have received contributions. Let's clarify something. I worked with a lot of people over the years. Have I received contributions from developers? Yes. Have I received contributions from lawyers who represent developers? I will double check. I don't think so. But that's not to say no. Honestly, I don't know. But one of my fraternity brothers and best friends is a developer. He doesn't do development in the city of South Fulton. Yes, he contributed to my campaign. Um, I, over the years, I've worked, as you all may know, I was the governmental affairs director for the Atlanta Realtors Association, as well as the Atlanta Commercial Board of Realtors. And in that, I developed relationships with a lot of people. And in that, they know what type of person I am, and they know what type of work that I'm able to do. And it's not about your money will make you do a development for them. It's about having good people in office.
Thank you for that. The next question comes from Ashley Asante. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. Do you believe it's appropriate to call something a debate when it was organized as a forum intended for voter education?
Well, quite frankly, I almost feel like they're one and the same. A lot of people will argue whether or not, semantics on forum versus debate, debate versus forum. It's an opportunity for people to get up and have a conversation about why they are the best person to be whatever that position is, whether it's we're having one right now for District 2, there was one the other night for mayor. There is going to be some for District 5. And of course, we now have a state Senate race that is about to start. So I would say yes.
All right, Ashley Asante, if you're still on, was there anything uh, directly in that question that you wanted to ask, or was it asked exactly how you liked it to be? If you can unmute, or let me see if I can get you. Hold on one sec. I just want to make sure because I wasn't sure of the question.
So she said that answer was fine.
The answer was fine. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I think I know the context of that question. So there was a release made by Mr. Johnson's campaign that it was determined that his campaign won the debate. So I think that's what she was referring to. I could be
Thank you
wrong,
so
but I
much.
think that was the question.
Thank you so much for clarification.
Yes.
All right. Do we have any additional citizens who would like to ask any additional questions? All right. And then I do have my last question when you mentioned
Okay.
real estate.
I'm
How
sorry, I
would
mentioned what now? You went out for a
when
second.
you mentioned real estate being
Okay.
over governmental affairs, how will you address affordable housing needs in South Fulton while preventing displacement of long-term residents?
So one of the things we have to do is get a diversity in stock in housing. I have a daughter who is 29, who is at one stage in life. Of course, me and my wife are at a different one. I also have a son that has graduated college. He's 23. We would love for him to move back to South Fulton, but he tells me that, and my daughter says as well, that they just simply can't afford it. If we have a diversity in housing, and when I say diversity in housing, I mean diversity in housing spread out across the city, not necessarily concentrated in one area, then that will give people the opportunity to be able to live in various areas. And we have to be honest, Everybody is not going to be able to live in Canaan Walk or Canaan Glen or one of those places. I don't, but somebody might live here or somebody might live there. But what we can do is create an opportunity for all of our residents to be able to live comfortably and to thrive in our city.
I appreciate that answer. We do have a question in the chat. It says, do you think the seats should be at large instead of district?
I really appreciate that question. Honestly, I like the at large. Well, I don't think all the seats should be at large. That would not be good for the city. But what I do believe would potentially be good, and we can look at it, if we're going to keep 7 seats, have 5 district seats and 2 at large, or maybe 6 district seats and 1 at large. And I'll tell you why. With Fulton County, we used to have an at-large seat. That way, you had an opportunity. If a citizen had an issue, they could reach out to their district commissioner, they can reach out to their at-large commissioner, or they can reach out to their county chair. So that was 3 different avenues that they could go to be able to talk to an elected official. In the city of Atlanta, you have a district, we have 3 at-larges, and then you have a council president. So again, now you have 5 opportunities. If there is an issue, let's say for whatever reason, your district council person doesn't like you, or your council person is just thought differently than you did. This would give you an opportunity to speak to a varying group. But it also gives the elected officials the ability when they're voting for the entire city. The at-large people are. They're voting for the entire city. Obviously, the districts they're supposed to be voting for the city, but I mean, I'm sorry, for their district, but they're actually voting for the entire city. And we want to make sure that these people are responsive to the entire city. Right now in District 2, no matter how I voted, only the people in District 2 would be able to vote for me if I were so blessed to be the city council person. Whereas if I was at large, every single vote I took would be looked at a lens through the entire city.
All right, thank you for that answer. We have
Mhm.
another question. Ms. Harvey just asked what cities use at large, and I think you already answered that. City of Atlanta does. I know.
East
They have
Point
that
too.
large.
East Point does at large as well.
Okay, in East
Mhm.
Point. Phyllis Reed asked the question, should there be term limits on the entire council and mayor's position, and how long? And if I'm not mistaken, I think the charter does state that it's only 3 terms, but please
Right.
correct me on what you may know.
Yes, the city of South Fulton, and I'll be honest here again, the city of South Fulton already has term limits. It's 12 years. I believe there are 2, I know Rashard is going to help me with this. Is it 2 or it's just 2 council members left that get an extra term because of the
Yeah,
way it started?
is the odd number is the odd number council seats, I believe.
The
Because
odd numbers,
I think they
but
get
it's
three.
only the ones that started initially, right?
Right, it
Yes,
So it'd
started with
only be 1 and 3.
yes.
So we only have 2 council members that can actually do 4 terms. Everybody else is restricted to 3 terms. And people argue whether or not that's good and bad. I go back and forth. One thing that I think that we should think about is that something, anytime that we put a rule in place, I think you should always put a rule in place for everybody and not for one person. I think that when you create legislation, you don't create legislation for one person. You create legislation for that seat or continuously, unless that person does something egregious. But if you look at the cities around us, they don't have term limits. So they can go in and they can create opportunities and develop relationships in a different way than we in the city of South Fulton. In the city of South Fulton, 12 years seems like a long time. I know it sounds like a long time. It did until my daughter now has a daughter. I still think about when she was just born. But whenever you have what I consider an unfair or an uneven playing field, it could go in the way of somebody else. And I'll give you another example. There was a an issue in the city of South Fulton that Mayor Reed actually started, but there was a council member that sat through both Reed's administration, sat through Keisha Lance Bottom's administration, and sat through Andre Dickens' administration and got it done during Andre Dickens' administration. So we just got to be mindful that when we say we want term limits, I don't have a problem with term limits if everybody has term limits.
All right, thank you so much for that. We have two more questions in the
Okay.
chat, and I have a question as well.
Okay.
How would you, if you were to become city council, how would your relationship be with the current mayor, Khalid?
I've already worked with him. I don't know what his perception of me is now as I've run for a candidate, or as I run as a candidate. But I do know I feel like during the time period that I had to work with him a lot during my time period on the elections board. I had to work with him on various issues. He had questions. I think one thing he can say is that we had robust conversations. Anytime he wanted to talk to me, I was always willing and available to him, just like I was willing and available for all other elected officials and citizens in the city of South Fulton. So I think that if he were to be the win re-election, I would be able to work with him in a way that, you know, even still, even on the zoning board of appeals, he had an opportunity to replace me immediately when he became the mayor, and he left me on the board for 3 years after he became mayor.
All right, thank you for that answer.
Mhm.
The next question comes from Brandon Eads. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Excuse me if
Mhm.
I don't. What would be the point of the mayor? Shouldn't all of the council members be advocates to the city as a whole, no matter the district? And I guess this question is in reference to
I get
having
it.
the,
Mhm.
yes.
So
Uh,
I think that's what I said. A part of it is as I mentioned as I was on the board of elections, every vote that I made was it affected people countywide. Every vote that a citizen, that a elected official or a city council person makes, most of them, not every single one, but most of them have effect outside of your district. Sometimes you may vote for something in your district, but most of the time you're voting for things outside of your district. You have to have an eye for the entire city whenever you're voting, whenever you're out, whenever you're discussing. Something that I've said before, and I'll say it again. Whenever I'm looking at, say, development coming into the city, or trying to get grocery stores, or trying to get restaurants, or trying to get different things to come to our city, while of course you want as much as you can get in District 2, I'm okay with it being District 2 adjacent. Like the Sandtown Crossing. Sandtown Crossing is literally across the street from District 2. I go to Publix at Sandtown Crossing. I go to Starbucks. I go to Chipotle. And don't tell my wife, but I go to Popeye sometimes too. And when I go, it's in District 1. I have the ability to go to restaurants in District 1 and to shop and do things in District 1. I also do things in District 3, District 4. My wife gets her hair done in District 6. So, it's just we are a city as a whole. So when we're out as elected officials or as citizens, we need to think about the city as a whole.
all right, thank you for that. The last question in the chat that I see is
Mhm.
from Elaine Miller Map. What are your thoughts on regarding, hold on, what are your thoughts regarding creating senior centers similar to
Mhm.
Fulton County QLS, offering supportive services? That's one question. And then currently City of South Fulton seniors who desire to go to a center must travel to College Park, East Point,
Mhm.
and others.
So another one of the things that I would love to do as a city council person and what I would do is advocate for a senior center right here in District 2. I have, during my time as working with Fulton County, working in the chairman's office and working in the county manager's office, I got an opportunity to always see what our seniors were doing. The programs that they have, the learning computer skills, just different things, the daycare, the senior daycare. Those are things that we need close to us. And I can tell you without a doubt, without question, I would be pushing very hard for our county commission to put a senior center in District 2.
Thank you for that answer. Next question is from Ms. Phyllis Reed. It says, in the last City of South Fulton Coalition Forum, it was mentioned, okay, so the city manager has two assistant city managers. What are your thoughts regarding on this? And should the city manager have two assistant city managers when department heads are to be reporting to the city manager?
I absolutely believe that there should be an assistant city manager because a lot of people, you got to think about all the things that a city manager does. Our county manager has three. Of course, the county is bigger, but the government is not as big anymore. But having an assistant delegates responsibility. If you think about it, you have a chief executive officer, you have a chief operating officer. Sometimes you in a company, you'll have a chief financial officer, but you'll have a president. And those people, while all the departments in that company report to the president or the chair of the board or however that structure is, you still have people that focus on very specific departments. Your assistant city managers, their jobs are to oversee very specific departments within the city. And of course, they might be interchangeable, but you want the city manager to be able to float between them, but you want that day-to-day deep dive detail to be done by your assistants.
All right. And then just to add to that, since we're on the city manager, what do you think about the salary for the city manager?
I think
Would
in
you keep
order,
the current city manager?
I'm sorry, go ahead. I
And would you,
apologize.
I'm sorry, I wasn't finished, but I had stopped as if I was though. Do you agree with the salary for the city manager? And that's one part question. And then the other part is, would you keep the same city manager? Would you vote to keep the same city manager?
Well, I would have to remember we talked in my first 100 days is sitting down, talking to the city manager and seeing what her vision is. It would be inappropriate for me, unless she did just something egregious, for us to say that I would absolutely fire her without having that conversation with her and not having a conversation with the other council members to see what they are. In order to determine whether or not, when her contract is up, do we need to renew that contract? As far as her salary, I think that for a city our size, our salary has to be equivalent or in competition with other cities that are equivalent to our size. We need to make sure one thing that we have to recognize is that we can't be cheap with our people. We have to make sure that we're paying people what they're worth in order to keep them here. And that's not just the city manager. I'm talking firefighters. I'm talking police officers. I'm talking the planning department, parks and recreation, everybody. We need to always assure that we are paying our employees a comparable salary to what other cities our size now. They may not compare to some bigger cities, but
Hmm.
cities our size, we like to tout that we're the second or third largest city in Fulton County and the seventh largest city in the state of Georgia. But when it comes to paying people, we want to drop down to number 50 and number 75. So I do believe that we have to be responsible to our employees and take care of our employees, and our employees will take care of us.
All right, thank you for that. Ms. Harvey, I will get to you. Let me get one question from the chat and then
Okay.
I will let you ask the last question. All right, one more question from the chat. The last question, his thoughts are what are your thoughts on establishing a senior commission similar to the one City of Atlanta has?
Oh, I'm all for it. I'm all for it because it gives us an opportunity for this commission to see the needs of our seniors in our community, to understand exactly what our seniors need. And as we're working towards this new senior center in District 2, that we know what type of programs to put in it, what type of exercise equipment to put in it. Do they want to learn computers, or what do they want to do? And this commission, at least if it's modeled somewhat after the one in the city of Atlanta, and maintaining a viewpoint and a voice more than anything for our seniors would be an amazing thing.
All right, thank you. We have 10 minutes before we close out. Ms.
Oh,
Harvey?
wow. That
Okay,
hour and a half went fast.
thank you very much. I went to a town hall meeting given by Councilwoman Willis in reference to the data centers, and I ran
Hmm.
into a lady who I don't know, she has some type of position dealing with seniors centers. And she told me that these senior centers are underutilized. So
Hmm.
I did not know that, East Point and College Park had senior centers because I don't really attend them. But are they are they highly in demand? I mean, do they get a huge population of people in reference to these senior centers?
I
Or
would ar Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
I would argue against that. In Fulton County, during my 9 years of working at Fulton County, our senior centers were consistently full with seniors doing various programs. Now, I will admit that during COVID, there was a hesitation for seniors to go to these facilities. And obviously, there was a time period that they couldn't. And it took a little while to get them back in there. But just when I was the district director for Congresswoman Williams, one of the things that we did was we would go play bingo with seniors. We would go visit seniors. Congresswoman Williams would spend time with seniors. QLS just had their 40th anniversary a week ago, I think it was, a week ago, and it was packed. So I believe that there is a strong desire for a senior center in our community. There would be and we got to remember what seniors are, who seniors are, rather. It's a number that most people think 90, 80 and above, but we have 60, 70-year-olds that go in there and they spend time and they do so many different things throughout the day that I think that it would absolutely. And that question, I don't know who asked it earlier regarding the senior commission or the commission on seniors, would be a great pathway into understanding exactly um, how much this senior center would be used and what exactly we need for it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you for
Thank you
that.
very
We have
much.
about eight
Yes, ma'am.
minutes left. And the next question is, we have one in the chat, and I do have one in reference to the charter, but I go to the one in the chat because it's in
Okay.
reference to senior centers. Why would D2, District 2, be the best location for a senior center? And
Because
this,
I'm running for District 2. I mean, let's just be honest. No, seriously, I believe that I think that one of the things that I see a couple of my opponents on here, so they can't, if y'all hear them say this later, y'all know I said it here first, right? We all agree with that? Okay, I just needed an okay or something. But see, I knew it was gonna happen. No, so the reason why I would like it to be in District 2 is we have land that if the land was purchased and we were able to put a park next to it, our seniors would not only be able to do things inside the facility, they would have space outside the facility. Now, I know a lot of people may say, well, they can just go to the park. Well, let's think about it. Seniors at the park with kids and teenagers and all of that, Seniors need a little more peace when it comes to being able to enjoy the outdoors. So, if we had an opportunity for our seniors to be able to be in a facility, to have a facility that had an outdoor space adjacent to it, I think that our seniors would be very excited to have that. And if we ever decided, and I'm sorry, but if we ever looked at other opportunities to move to have senior centers somewhere else, I wouldn't argue that. If you wanted to have one on the other side of town or one in a different area, that's not something that I would complain about. But as the District 2 city council person, and I know we just talked about this whole district thing, but we would definitely push for it to be in District 2.
All right, let's see how fast you can move. We have 5 minutes and two
Okay.
questions. What are some things about the charter that you like, and would you change the charter again?
That charter's been touched about every 6 months, unfortunately. It seems like every third conversation is about changing the charter. How about we just follow the rules to the charter that we have? I think that for the most part, our charter, I mean, again, I talked about a couple things, but I think our charter is not the problem. I think the problem is more how people are using the charter. I think if we had some more people that focused on the city and focused on doing what's best for the residents of the city of South Fulton, the charter question wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Thank you for that. One more question from Mrs. Reed, Phyllis
Mhm.
Reed. Can you please explain impact fees, and should developers pay impact fees?
So, impact fees are, we were in a debate the other night, and I think the definition of impact fees was just a little off. So, an impact fee is, let's say you put in an apartment complex. That apartment complex is now going to use more water. Apartment complex is going to probably have to use more police and fire. So, those current uh, the current services that we offer as a city will have to be potentially expanded in order to cover the new development that comes in. Impact fees are designed to be a fee that when they come in, they are going to help offset the cost of maybe an additional police officer driving by. It could be an office tower. So it may offset the addition of a fire department expansion in order to cover that building. So that's what impact fees are. I think community improvement agreements is what they were discussing the other night, but we can talk about that at a different time. As far as am I in favor of it? I think that as a young city, it's something we definitely going to have to look at. When I was at the Atlanta Realtors Association, we actually did a study to see how impact fees and who used impact fees. Sometimes they use them to deter. The bigger thing is impact fees are used to deter development or to slow down development, which we could do as a community if we decided, you know what? We want to implement impact fees to keep developers from coming in or slow developers down from doing developments. We could absolutely look at that.
And great, just one more segue before you get off.
Mhm.
2 minutes. You've already mentioned slowing it down. What are your thoughts? Should we slow down development, or should we keep it at the rate where we're going?
Well, the rate we're going is pretty quick. I think that what we have to do is look at trying to offset or not offset, but to work on infrastructure needs at the same time we're having development. Development is happening, it's going to happen, but what we need to try to do is make sure our roads are safe. Our roads are expanded in order to accommodate some of the development that's going on. We need to make sure that as these developments are happening, they're looking at what's on one side of the street is not in conflict on what's on the other side of the street. Oh, I'm sorry. What's on one side of the street is not in conflict with what's on the other side of the street. So I think that from what I see, we have movement, but it's at least in District 2 We hear about a lot of things, but they're not moving really quick. There's a development directly across the street from my house. They've been working on that for over a year now, and they hadn't gone vertical yet. So, we really have to look at what is best for our city when it comes to development.
Absolutely. And with that, we will end. I thank you so much for your time, Mr. Johnson. I thank you for just coming out to speak with the citizens, allowing the citizens to ask you questions, and allowing me to moderate tonight. And
Mhm.
if there's anything else that you can say in 1 minute, that can probably influence to tell someone a little bit about yourself and how you can become city council member, for District 2.
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me out tonight. Thank you to all those that took the time to hear. I know we're listening to a lot of candidates and it's a lot of things going on and it's a lot of information, but I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, especially on Monday Night Football night. But my name is Aaron Johnson. I am running to be your next District 2 City Council person. I think that of all the candidates, I have the perfect intersection of community commitment and government experience. We finally need people in office that not just know about government, but understands how government works and are committed to our community. You can learn more about me at electaaronjohnson.com. Again, that's electaaronjohnson.com. Thank you again, and y'all have a great night.
All right, thank you so much for participating, and Ms. Bradford, thank you so much for moderating for us tonight. And I just wanted to let the public know that we will not have a meeting tomorrow, but we will be back on Wednesday. Now, on Wednesday, we will be featuring candidate DeJaris Glasgow. That'll be at 6 p.m. And then we will have Connie Robinson at 7:35 p.m. So look forward to having everybody back on Wednesday. And Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for participating. And best of luck to you on the campaign trail.
I truly appreciate it and thank you again.
No problem. Everybody have a good night.
All right, you
All
too.
right.
All right.